I had to turn up my volume. I think it is kind of low.
It is 10 a.m., July 18th, and this meeting of the Arizona Oil and Gas Conservation Commission comes to order. It is roll call. Commissioner Fire Robin, are you here?
Here.
Commissioner Nations, are you here?
Here.
Commissioner Conway, are you here?
I am.
Commissioner Ballard, are you here?
Yes, sir.
And this is Chair Thorwald, and I am here as well. Is there any conflicts of interest? I have not received any, and hearing none, we will move forward to item 2 on the agenda. Administrator Roberts, would you please proceed?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Thorwald. Today there's a couple of agenda items. One was brought forth by Myriad, and it is a request to release a $25,000 blanket bond that the Arizona Commission received in April of 23, and they want to replace it. Sorry, they want that bond. They want that bond to replace two single well $10,000 bonds that they had submitted before. So they want to release the two 10K bonds and give those back to Myriad. So
yes, and
that's the request.
This is Mike Dickinson with Myriad Resources. Yeah, just to be clear, we had established the two $10,000 bonds on the first wells we drilled, and we would like to request to release those and replace them with a $25,000 blanket bond that we established for up to 10 wells.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for them?
This is Commissioner Nations.
Please proceed.
I'm a little confused. I thought we were going to just release the two $10,000 bonds, and the $25,000 bond would stay in place. But is that not correct?
That's absolutely
That's correct.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Yes, we just need to vote on that if we want to approve that or not. Commissioners, is there any other questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
This Commissioner Nations, I move to approve the release of the two $10,000 bonds. I don't know if I need to specify the numbers. And I still, I thought we were in withholding the $25,000 bond, so that needs to be cleared up.
We are keeping a $25,000 bond, and we are going.
I thought they just requested that be released.
No, that is the one we are replacing the two $10,000 bonds with.
Well, that was my understanding. Whatever was stated just a few minutes ago confused me on that. So I stand by that motion to approve the two $10,000 bonds and retain the $25,000 bond to cover the wells.
Do we have a second for that?
Commissioner Ballard, I second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Is there any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Administrator Roberts, would you move on to the second item?
Yes, thank you. The second item is Myriad's Aztec 1-35. They are requesting an extension for a pressure test for the temporary abandonment of Aztec 135. And they're requesting that extension, trying to read here, from 7/31 to 11/30 of 25 to allow for mobilization of a workover rig.
Commissioner, it is, commissioners, do anybody have any questions for Myriad?
No, this is Commissioner Ballard. I actually wasn't remembering that we had a deadline associated with that. So an extra time to get a rig is completely understandable.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion for, to, AB?
This is Commissioner Nations, not to be repetitive, but I move to approve a conditional extension of the temporary abandonment status for a period of 90 days.
Do we have a second?
Fire Robbins, second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Do we have any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, and I say aye as well. The motion carries. Let us move on to 2B.
Thank you.
Administrator Roberts.
Thank you, Chairman Thorwald. Item 2B is a application from Arizona Drilling and Operating to drill a well in Township 16 North, Range 23 East, Section 14. A couple of things to note on the well. The application is for an oil and helium well, but further on in other documentation, it appears to be specifically for helium. The acres that are leased are 480 acres, and a drilling unit for a helium well would need to be 640. The surrounding properties are owned by the Hopi. So if I think Mr. Diesel is here, did you have approval from the Hopi tribe or letters from the Hopi tribe sent out, Mr. Diesel?
He is here. He may be just trying to unmute.
Okay. I did not receive any letters stating that, but
there I am.
he might be here. Okay,
There he is.
hi Hank.
Sorry. Hi. It's been a while since I've used Zoom. Yeah, thank you to the commission for putting this on the agenda for today. When I figured out that it was, then I sent out, I think 2 days ago, FedEx to the Hopi tribe, giving them a heads up that it would be on the agenda for today. They would have, the receipt I have from them is it's not much advance notice, but they received it yesterday. The letter.
Do you have a letter of approval from them?
No, I do not.
We would need to postpone this, I believe, until we would have such a letter to be able to ensure that there is no problems, that they have no problems with this, because this would encroach upon their rights.
Yeah, totally understood. I'm hopeful in that a predecessor company, Pentadome Operating, no longer in business, got their approval last time, so I'm hopeful they won't have a problem with it this time.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for them?
Well, Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Ballard. I know, of course, there has to be a notification period at which, the opportunity that any of the offset operators have the right to object. I would think we could probably approve this pending the final ending of that period and no objections being raised from offset operators.
The Hopis don't approve it.
Then
We could end up in a situation with the feds on this if I don't see any issues here. What does the AG's office think? Is it okay to approve this in advance with that notification, or should we wait?
They are.
I think you're muted, Rick.
This is what deferred. He's probably just trying to unmute. We have both AGs on the line. We can just give him a minute. Let's see. Taylor, are you on?
Hi, yes, this is Taylor
Okay.
Parmenter from the AG's office.
Okay.
I don't know if this conversation might be better for an executive session since it is offering legal advice on this issue, but I'll leave that up to the commission's discretion.
This is Commissioner Nations, not to interject this, but I feel like we should just postpone it.
Commissioner Nations, is that a motion?
That is a motion, postpone until we get final approval from the Hopi tribe.
Do I have a second for that motion?
This is Mike Conway. I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? On this, I'm going to take a roll call. How do you vote, Commissioner Nations?
I vote to support my motion. Yes.
And this is Chairman Thorwald. I say aye as well. Commissioner Firerobbin, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Conway, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Ballard, how do you vote?
Aye.
This will be postponed until such time that we receive the letter of authorization from the Hopi Nation. Administrator Roberts, would you move on to the next item on the agenda?
Thank you, Chairman Thorwald. The next item is the Plains MIT inspection report summary, and Wendy is going to provide that.
Wendy, please proceed.
Yep. Hold on 1 second, please. Okay, so yes, Commissioners, this is Wendy from the Oil and Gas Specialist with the Arizona Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. A fellow inspector, Mr. Tony Stone, and I were able to witness and be present at not only the inspection that is required, but also they did their 5-year integrity test. This is through Plains Mainstream. This is the salt cavern. This is the storage facility over on the west side. And so basically what I included in this report to all of you is just showing you the inspection that was done. This is cavern number 1. We do have some representatives from the company on the line that are available to answer questions, or please interject if you want to add anything, but I just thought it was good for the commissioners to see the inspection report as well as everything that took place for the integrity test, the sonar, the mapping of the cavern. They also did some work to repair a well. So hopefully you all kind of took a look at the report that was provided you, but I wanted to show you a few photos. Tony Stone actually went out additionally from me on his own. So I'm going to let him kind of start with what he observed, and then I will follow up.
Yes. So at the site, we saw that there was plenty of signage and safety barriers around. And you can see here with the yellow guarding here. And what was unique to this site compared to the one that was just outside of Holbrook is much of it was above ground, whereas the site that we visited outside of Holbrook, like much of the piping was below grade.
Also, the other unique aspect of this facility is their footprint is a lot smaller, but yet their capacity is quite a bit larger than the other facilities. So we thought that was interesting. But one of the things that they did is, as part of their 5-year test, they realized also that it was probably time to replace the wellhead, and you can kind of see it here. And so they also did that as well. But this is just some of the equipment that was on site for the testing. This is just a little bit more of the the facility itself. That's one of the tankers coming in for the storage. This is when they were preparing the well to do the sonar testing and the nitrogen gas testing. A little bit more of the facility, like Tony mentioned, you can see they have the fire extinguisher, the safety mechanisms, just some more of the trucks kind of showing the capacity of and volume that they have. Working clear pressure gauges. Again, just a little bit more of the facility. There is the actual cavern itself attached for all of the work and the work rig. As you can see, the wellhead was a little bit corroded, so it's good that they changed it out for a new one, which took place, I believe, after everything was said and done. They went in. So this is, I don't know if you all have ever seen it before, but we thought this was pretty fascinating with the integrity test. This is an actual like sonar going into the cavern to map the cavern to verify the shape, and it goes around and it does the sonar to kind of give an outline, and as the outline changes, you can see how the dots in the line have changed, and then that's how they are able to determine the shape of the cavern, and that's the depth in the feet per minute. This is all done inside. This is just kind of showing the control panel as they're sending the sonar down into the cavern, and that's what it looks like. It's a pretty cool 3D model of the mapping and the shape of the cavern. And then again, I offer anybody from the company to chime in here too as well. This is the brine water storage. As you can see, it's lined and it's full. It's got its pumping and pipes there. This is the nitrogen that is used for the actual pressure test, because they pump the nitrogen into the cavern. So this is the truck that it comes on. It's pretty cool. I'm going to play this video that Tony took. You can actually see, because it's under pressure and it's pretty cold as well. You can see the vapors coming off of it onto, that's the nitrogen gas that's going into the cavern. And then that's the wellhead, the new wellhead that was installed. And then that's the actual setup of the gas going into the well that for the pressure test. And then again, that's the and then that's the this is how they can determine when it's time to enter more of the gas as it fills up the cavern. Once it hits that that black line, once it starts to move over, that tells them it's time to add more of the gas so they can fill up the cavern, so they can make sure it can contain and hold pressure. And that's the inside control room. And the whole office is basically inside that truck. So we just thought that was kind of fascinating. It was a lot of coordination and planning, but from what we saw and what we observed, it was a full and complete test. And like I mentioned, I provided you all a copy of the report and the meeting information. Are there any questions or comments from the commissioners? I'm just scrolling through the reports. You can see what was submitted that kind of goes along with the photos that you saw.
Wendy, this is Chairman Thorwald. Does the brine pond, is it still shared with Morton Salt?
I believe so. I don't. Somebody from the companies on the line. I know they share the wells and the water.
Yeah. So can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Please identify yourself.
This is Michael Esco with Plains Midstream. I manage the North American NGL Asset Integrity Group for the company, which includes the team that works on caverns. Thank you very much for the presentation. No comments. Everything was as it were. I think the only thing to point out is the picture of the individual by the old part of the wellhead that was off the well. That was sitting. That was components sitting on the ground in the dirt. It kind of looked horrible if it were part of the well, but that's off to the side, sitting in the mud there. That's all that stuff gets junked. It's beyond refurbishment there. So anyway, Yes, to answer the question, we lease that property from Morton Salt. We own and maintain the quality of the brine ponds as well at the site, but all of that is leased from Morton.
Do you use any other, this is Chairman Thorwald again, do you use any other gases besides the inert nitrogen to do testing?
No, only nitrogen, and that's the reason we use nitrogen is because it is inert.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Wendy or for Plains Bumpstead?
This is Commissioner Feyerabend. I enjoyed the photos. It's nice to see a neat and clean and organized workplace.
Yes, this is Wendy Tony, and I did notice that as well.
Any other questions, commissioners? Thank you. I appreciate that, Wendy, and Plains. Thank you for providing that. Administrator Roberts, would you move on to the next item on the list, D, agenda?
Thank you, Chairman Thorwald. The next item is Alterra Energy bond submittal, and this is a $50,000 performance bond. They are proposing to take over or have acquired the wells from Pinta South Operating Company. And there's a list there of the wells. So we're asking for approval
Commissioners,
of
do you
this
have any
company.
Commissioners, do you have any questions on the materials you've received for this? Hearing none, do we have an motion? Is there any motion to approve or deny this bond?
This is Commissioner Nations. I approve the bond as presented.
So that's a motion to approve the bond as presented. Do we have a second?
This is Commissioner Ballard. I second.
We have a motion and a second. All approved. We'll say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Administrator Roberts, would you move on to item E on the agenda?
Sure. Thank you. Item E, I do not have any updates on at this time.
Then let us move on to item F on the agenda.
Okay, item F, the oil and gas permitting budget. I can speak to the APAF, which is currently used to fund oil and gas, and that budget for the year is approximately $355,000.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for Administrator Roberts on the budget? Hearing none, let us move on to the next item, item 3 on the agenda. Administrator LePage, are you presenting on this one? Or is it Administrator Roberts?
It will be Miss LePage.
Okay.
So yes, this is Tina LePage with ADEQ. The site visit. Wendy, are you going to be speaking about this?
Yes. I got to do another site visit, and I was accompanied by Jim Gridley, who is working with Tina on the Orphan Well grant. He and I were able to go out. Again, I know how much you all love pictures. So we were able to go out and witness one aspect of one of the wells that was being plugged. Jim, are you on? Can you remind me where this well was?
I believe this well was located about 50 or 60 miles east of Tucson.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It was just outside of between Tucson and Wilcox. Thank you.
Wilcox.
Yeah. And feel free to chime in as well since you were present. But this is just some photos. This is the step in the process that they were here for the plugging as they were trying to set their plugs. So you can see right here at the bottom of the photo, that's the cement tank. That's where this cement was being mixed and poured, and then it was being with this. You can kind of see like a piping going up into the well, and that's the actual where the cement was being placed into the well, so it could be plugged. And then this is just some more photos of that setup. This is a little bit close up of the actual well head and the connectors and the valves and the setup for the plugging aspect. This is just a little bit more of the footprint of the plugging that was taking place, and the drill rig with the platform. As you can see, it's a pretty dry, flat, dusty area. Jim, oh yeah, and so then they were running into, I think when they were bringing out, when they were trying to set their plug, they were or they were trying to go deeper. This is like a sticky mud and clay that they were finding was being attached. And so as they were pulling it out, this was getting on, look at what those things are called. And so this is just some of the issues that they ran into with the well. I believe they had to get a variance request as well, but ultimately they were able to plug the well. So anything else to add, Jim?
No, you covered it pretty well.
Okay. Any questions from the commissioners and stuff? I just thought you'd like to see some aspects of one of our was actually in process. I believe this was about 2 months ago, I think. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Any commissioners, you have any questions? Okay, hearing none, let us move on to item 2, item B on the agenda. Administrator LePage.
Yes, thank you. This is Tina LePage with AZOGCC. We've got four 9s. They all belong to Tetra Tech. These are 4 that were not pre-approved in the ones that we did about 2 months ago. So we've got Tetra Tech on the line in case there are any questions with any of these.
Council members, do you have any questions on any of them?
Oh, did Tina say 4 wells?
Yes.
A, B, C, and D under 3B.
I don't have a D.
It's 02-017000265.
This is with the flood. The D was added at the beginning of the week, and I sent a follow-up email to all of the commissioners adding D, as well as it was put on the website adding D, which is this 02-017000265. And I can scroll through if that helps you, Mr. Nations.
Please scroll through it for Commissioner Nation.
And I will make it bigger as well. Yeah, I believe I sent notification out to all the commissioners, I believe on Tuesday, that it had been updated.
I had received it, yes.
Okay. And it was on the website. And then here is the location, zoomed in and zoomed out.
Commissioner Nations, do you have any specific questions on this
No.
well?
No. No, actually, I moved for the approval to plug and abandon these 4 wells.
Do we have a second?
Well, I would, this is Commissioner Ballard. I would like to ask a question about one of the other wells, if we're going to do them as a group.
Yes, go ahead and ask the question. Which one is it, Commissioner?
Well, what I'd like to discuss is actually 3BB. That would be well 013050034. And this is a well in the Phoenix metropolitan area near Cave Creek. And I don't really object to the plan to do a relatively shallow plug, fix up the surface plug, but I have noticed this is a relatively deeper well. It goes all the way down to I guess 1136. It's all valley fill. And one thing I noted was that in the original well filed by the operator, not this application form, they really noted no water zones, which of course it is their responsibility to note. And if there were in fact no water zones, then this would be a very appropriate procedure, just take care of the surface. But several of the zones actually look geologically from the sample descriptions that they really could be water zones. So I don't know if you've had a detailed discussion about this. My initial suggestion is to try and go a little deeper and protect a little bit more of the potential zones below the surface. I noticed there's a very significant geologic break around 575. That's kind of the bottom of the zones that I noticed that might have some potential as with for porosity and permeability. So I mean, if this isn't something you've discussed and come up with real problems with trying to go a little deeper, yeah, my recommendation is to try and take it to 575 and fill it with cement as deep as you can. I know that's a problem, and the fallback would be the plan pretty much as you have it.
Administrator LePage, any comments on that?
Yes, this is Tina LePage. Micah with Tetra Tech, are you on the line?
Yeah, this is Micah with Tetra Tech. So we could certainly go to 575. Like you said, there wasn't noted there was any water zones, which is why we were just plugging the casing shoe and to surface. But we could go deeper. We just finished plugging a well in the same area north side of Scottsdale. What is it? About a month, 2 months ago. And we did have issues with running into caverns in that area.
Well, my comment is do what's reasonably possible. I'd like to protect a little bit more groundwater. I know you're going to be beyond casing, drilling open hole. So good luck.
Yeah.
I also concur with the Commissioner Ballard on that. I think it should go deeper. Commissioners, what are your thoughts on this?
Hi, Robin, I agree.
This is Mike Conway. I agree as well.
Commissioner Nations, your thoughts?
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay, do we have a motion to, well, first of all, is there any other questions on any of the other wells? Pluggings? Hearing none, go ahead.
I need to the motion needs to be modified that I made.
Yes, you need to modify it.
So I approve of the plugging and abandonment of these 4 wells as amended.
Do we have a second?
Mike Conway here. I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Moving on to 3C, Administrator LePage, would you present?
Yes, this is Tina LePage with ADEQ. We have 7 Form 10s from previously plugged wells that we would like to present. These are, I think they are mostly, well, they're Tetra Tech and HydroGeochem, I believe. Do we have any questions on any of these?
Well, Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Ballard. I have fairly minor points on 2 of the Form 10s. Nothing really very profound. If you'd like to hear those,
please proceed.
Well, one of them is on well 013050031, and that was a successful plugging operation. And I just want to say I really appreciate the picture of the rattlesnake.
Oh, let me get to that.
Yeah, I like that.
It was a nice picture, but what it means is that you guys did the right thing. You were safe and no one got bitten. So I want to commend you on taking the care on that. It's going to happen a lot, but I appreciate you being safe on that. The other point is really very minor. It concerns well 001 05320, and it's really just a write-up issue. Yeah, once again, this was not a potash well. This was a exploration well for the Coconino back in the 60s. So just a little correction on the well summary is all. I think I gave one a hint before on how to tell the wells apart. One other good way is the companies tended to do fairly large programs of wells, and I think Eastern Petroleum did as well. So I think they were all exploratory wells. So just in the future, red flag. It's probably not a potash well. Of course, a couple of the other operators did do large potash programs, and that would just be the inverse. The first assumption would be that it probably is a potash well. So if you just fix that, I'd appreciate it. It's just a word issue.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions from any of the commissioners? Do we need a motion to approve this?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Rick Zeiss from the Attorney General's office. I would appreciate a motion to approve.
Thank you. Commissioners, do I have a motion? Do we have a motion to
Chairman,
approve?
this is Commissioner Ballard. I move that we approve the 7 410s we have before us as exhibits 3B. Excuse me. I guess we're on 3C.
Yes, 3C, A through G.
That's correct.
Do we have a second?
Fire Robbins, second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any abstentions? Any nays? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Moving on to 4, Chairman Thorwald's report. I have no updates for anyone on this. Let us move on to B. Where are we on the rules update review and discussion? Commissioners, would you fill us in? Commissioner Ballard, where are we? How far along are we in getting this started for the review?
Well, I think we're pretty far along. Mike and I were assigned 3 rules, and we have pretty much draft versions of them, making some changes. And I just I don't know if we want to have to spend much time in discussion of this, but just to introduce to the commission, the one key issue in all the 3 rules is we have the big issue of bonds. And that, of course, is a big issue as far as the P&A experience we're having now. So I just want the commissioners to start thinking about that. The bond is $10,000 per well. The AZOGCC recommended increasing it a modest amount to 15,000. This starts at the bottom. It's more for deeper wells and more wells. But I just want to say that's one tact. And then, of course, the other tact is to actually reproduce what it would cost to plug and abandon a well. We can probably get some updated numbers from Tina, but of course, just the background inflation since the early 1960s has been 10 times. So $10,000 would go to $100,000. This is not a way that many states have gone. They have these funds and things which they can take care of the occasional plug and abandonment, but there's really kind of 2 paths for Arizona to go: a high bond that might really pay for plug and abandonment, and a low bond which will continue to attract drilling activity. And I'm not sure what we'd do if we had to pay for a plug and abandonment without the federal government.
Administrator LePage, how does that compare to the cost so far?
This is Tina LePage with ADEQ. The costs are so variable across each well because each one is so different.
Is there an average?
I would have to say about 75,000. just for the plugging and abandonment.
Commissioner Ballard, could you take a look at what the options would be to try to make sure that we can cover these things, but at the same time, not to distract from generating new business in the state?
Clearly, Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Ballard. I just wanted to introduce a topic I don't expect it to resolve today. That's the biggest issue that Mike and I are dealing with.
Fantastic. Commissioner Nations and Commissioner Fire Robin, where are you at?
I'll have to admit I have really not done anything. Commissioner Nations.
Well, we're still looking at that for our next meeting, so you still have time.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you repeat what my instructions were, please, for Bill and me?
We can just have staff can just send you that offline along with the materials that are needed again.
Please do.
Commissioner Fire Robin, what about you? Do you need any additional materials?
Yeah, why don't you include me what you send to Dale so we're on the same page. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy, would you make sure that they're sent that material?
Yes, this is what Defled. I will resend the emails that went out. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to 4C. Before we move on, is there any further discussion on the rules review that we're doing? Hearing none, let's move on to item C on the agenda 4C. Is there any resolutions the commissioners would like to recommend to the governor to move forward to present at the AZOGCC meeting in September? Hearing none, we will move on to item D on the agenda. We have two speakers today. Well, the first one will be Brian Goatee from the Arizona Geologic Survey, and he'll be talking about the injection of CO2 in the state. This goes along with our recommendation to the governor that they proceed with the CO2 sequestration operations within the state as a viable business opportunity for the state. And our second speaker today will be Mike Hightower, who will be talking about produced water. He is the head of the New Mexico Produced Water Consortium, which is taking the lead for EPA in the nation on how to deal with produced water for a variety of different uses, including agriculture and other uses here that we could use here in the state. And we are a member of that consortium. So let us start with Brian Goatee from the Arizona Geologic Survey. Brian, would you please proceed?
All right, thank you, Commissioner Thorwald. This is geologist Brian Goatee. Wendy or whoever's, could I possibly share my screen rather than a static slide deck?
Why don't you see if you can? This is when Defled.
Why don't you see if you can do
that? Yeah, why don't you see if you can do it?
It says I need. I'll send the. I just sent the request.
There we go. I will allow it.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Let me share.
It should be at the bottom. There should, at least on my computer.
I just don't want to share my screen. I'm going to share the PowerPoint presentation. So now I'm going to.
There you go.
Play it. And do you see a full screen or a partial?
We see the full screen.
All right, great. Thank you.
But we also see your notes as well.
Oh, so I'm going to switch those two.
Yeah.
Swap.
There you go. Much better. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So at the request of Commissioner Thorwald, I'm here today to present some of the state affairs about CCS but also the synergistic components of that. especially in light of the EPA granting preliminary primacy that's expected later this month. I'm sorry, in September. So this talk is really split up into three parts because it's a big state. There's lots of synergies, lots of competition for pore space. So today I'd like to just introduce part one, which is just aspects of gas storage, which I'm so glad Wendy and Mike Lesko and others presented the Bumstead site. That's really saved me a whole slide or two.
Yes, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, that's really great. And then also CCS and related stuff. If I'm invited back after this talk, then I would like to go into geothermal potential. Part two and part three would be aspects of managing gases in the subsurface, whether they're generated or extracted. Okay, so just a national snapshot of some of the subsurface energy-related aspects. Yellow being underground gas storage sites in the U.S., black being carbon management sites as of a couple of years ago. This is will probably look more or less the same, but there's a few more, maybe a dozen more spots on this map since 23, and then the existing geothermal as of now. So this is the makeup of at least these parts of the pore space management as it relates to energy. This outline, like I said, will be focused on gas storage and sequestration. The graphical outline on the left just illustrates a basic strat column for the basin and range, not the Colorado Plateau, that just sort of highlights the freshwater component, siliciclastic alluvium in the upper part, bedded salt in some of the basins, overlying more siliciclastic material interbedded with volcanics and a complex of bedrock components in the subsurface. So really this middle, let's see if I could turn my laser pointer on here. So this talk will focus on bedded salts and gas storage, and then stacked saline injection and mineralization related to CCS. So for gas storage in caverns, obviously this is a very attractive component for storage. As we know, we've had ours in place for almost 60 years, and I think to quote Mike Lesko, because hello Mike, shout out, because it's nice to see you on the call. He and I talked a few years back about the Bumstead site and just the quality of it. It's a fairly high quality salt with very few impurities, and that yields the opportunity to store the LPG and other gases in these kinds of settings. And so this is what stands out when it comes to Arizona as compared to other states, because they don't have probably the same setting necessarily, but they do have other salts that are used for this. So again, low permeability, high solubility, and then high resealing potential for these kinds of salts, and minimal chemical reactivity. But the basic concept is to drill into the bedded salts and clean it out and create the cavern with brine and fresh water, and then fill the cavern with brine to maintain it for gas storage. And in terms of what the cavern can be used for, yeah, LPG is what we have been using it for, but we could also use it for compressed air, compressed hydrogen gas, natural gas, and even brine or other types of waste could be used in this setting, or temporary storage. So those are kind of the other states are thinking of these salt caverns in that kind of context, and I'm not sure what our future would hold in terms of what other uses we could think about in terms of these salt bodies, but we have quite a volume of bedded salts in the state. So again, just to kind of recap what Wendy and Mike had covered is that, we do the Bumstead site here and the Adamana site in the northeastern Arizona, two caverns here and three here respectively. So this seismic profile on the bottom is relatively old. The data have been lost And there's, to my knowledge, there hasn't been a reshooting of this salt body. So this is the best that we have. It's roughly 7,000 feet thick, and it's Miocene in age. And of course, there's the wellhead and the brine pond, and this is an older pre-2025 MIT provided by Plains, just to give us a snapshot of what these bodies look like. All right. And then the last slide on bedded salt potential, we've just we're a new group. We're the basin analysis team at the AZGS. So we have lots of various projects, and we've only recently kind of tried to get into salt, mainly because we had a core repository and we lost it during the transfer from the state to the U of A. So we've just reacquired that repository for core and cuttings, and we are planning on expanding that. We only have, I think, 20,000 or 10,000 square feet, so we need more. But in this effort to try and bring back the repository, we thought we would focus on a project with Los Alamos National Labs to test the efficiency and efficacy of hydrogen diffusion at the Waste Isolation Protection Plant in Carlsbad, New Mexico. And so this is Lisa Thompson, Tanya Wilson, and myself. They're working with Lannel and supplying them with many of our split core to test the potential for at least hydrogen storage in this aspect. But we did post the status of the core repository that's focused on salt bodies and the known versus modeled likely bedded salt that has not been verified or validated through drilling in this map on the right. So if you scan this QR code, it'll take you to a web map that has the metadata associated with those core. And you do have access to the core down in Tucson, where we have a facility open to the public upon request. On the carbon capture, storage, and utilization, or just carbon capture and storage, CCS, CCUS, this photo really looks at the Harquahala Basin. This is one of our poster children for CCS sites that we'd like to test. But just to introduce, for those of you that are not familiar with carbon capture and storage, it's really pretty basic. We start with point source, and then you have a sink over here or a storage site in the subsurface, and then mainly pipelines and right-of-ways between the site facility and capture, compression, and transporting it into either a storage facility on the order of tens of millions of metric tons, or in some capacity for utilization through the cementation and synthesis of metal, foods, fertilizers, and in our case, concrete. We've got one project focused on concrete. The process is and the requirements are relatively straightforward. You have a point source or a direct air capture or carbon dioxide removal. We don't really care. What we do care about is the subsurface storage potential in stacked saline environments. That was the case 15 years ago. I think nowadays we're really kind of expanded into a more nuanced environment to include mafic rocks, ultramafic rocks that are highly reactive with CO2 to form solid carbonates in a matter of weeks to months and no more than years. And so we do have a lot of mafic and ultramafic rocks in the subsurface, so we are heavily exploring this with one of our partners, Carbfix out of Iceland. And then, of course, stacked saline and brines. And so the concept is that you extract the brine and you mix it with a concentration of CO2 and you re-inject it to maintain the pressure in these formations. But you do need a seal, and you do need sufficient lithostatic stress or load, generally greater than 800 meters or 2,600 feet, and in waters and aquifers that are not deemed usable or treatable.
Brian,
Yes.
quick, sorry to interrupt you, just a quick question for clarification on the injection of that into the salt. That turns the CO2 into a solid, so there's no potential to be released. Is that correct?
in this setting for reactive rocks high in magnesium and similar cations, yes.
Okay, thank you.
In terms of the state of the state for CCS potential, these are 2 draft maps. We do plan to fold out an accessible version of these maps next month. But the map on the left shows basins that have pore space below 800 meters or 2,600 feet in sedimentary basins just for the basin range. So the plateau is not included in this assessment, but we rank them based on proximity to the point source or the transportation right-of-ways. And so red means that it's favorable because it's near point source. It has sufficient depth, porosity, and so on. So the reds, dark reds, oranges are favorable sites. And just to give you a sense of scale, like when we talk about, this cluster of power plants right here, this produces about 13 million metric tons a year. So Harquahala is a favorite because it's along a right-of-way, and the pore space below 800 meters is on the order of about 300 cubic kilometers of pore space, which is ridiculously large. All of that's not accessible and requires a seal and so on and so forth. But even the P50 for storage at these depths is around 1,800 million cubic meters of CO2. So if we stored 60, tons over the lifespan of Harquahala, an injection period, that's reasonable, we think. So we just need to test that. Other basins have lots of potential, but you have to talk about infrastructure at that scale. For the plateau, this is a different way of looking at it. This is more of an indices map that's used to model and simulate the movement and management of carbon in this space. So we have these sedimentary basins like the Parawitz and the Paradox, Black Mesa, San Juan, Holbrook, and St. John's Dome, but not other domes are shown on here. So the geologic setting is definitely unique from the basin range, but we have ranked them differently based on a sort of a cellular approach, that within this cell, you can expect this P50, P90, P10 for porosity and perm. And that allows a sort of a decision-making process to start and to take place. Even though we know that we're focusing on the St. John's Class 6 CO2 injection by next year, which I'll talk about in a little bit.
Excuse me again, Chairman Thorwald, Ryan, in that area, is that the area where that's the naturally occurring CO2 field?
Correct. Yes. And so the St. John's Dome has a helium and a CO2 cap and groundwater associated with that. So yes, there's those components plus a couple other gases.
Also, on your map, I don't know if it's there, but the USGS had stated that they thought there was a naturally occurring hydrogen field in the state. Do you have that listed?
It's not shown on this map, but I think it's right here. I think it's an interesting concept, and I do plan to talk about that in part 3. Based on the data, there's really only one data point there that suggests that hydrogen is being produced in the subsurface and accumulating. But as far as the pathways and access and the potential to engineer something more favorable than that one data point, because there's lots of other null points around that needs to be discussed and sort of highlighted.
Thank you. Sorry to have interrupted.
No, I'm happy to do that. Okay, so related to CCUS, the utilization component, we do have a DOE project that's wrapping up that's focused on mineralizing CO2 dissolved in saline water and mixing that with mafic rocks or basalts, because we have a lot of these. Not just any basalt, it could be the brecciated part of it. It could be the core part of a flow. It could be the cinder cinderous part of the flow. All of these aspects are sort of being tested at bench scale studies with NAU. And our point source would be ASU's mechanical tree for direct air capture is the way the project's currently structured. But the goal is to make solid carbonates, and we have been making them. We've been making solid carbonates out of these rocks. We have about 200 samples and a couple dozen that have been tested with positive and negative results. So it's a learning process. But this is our model is relying quite heavily on what Carbfix is doing in Iceland, where they have a geothermal component, a saline water, a point source, and then a reinjection. And we have these components as well. So we hope that this marriage, yields some results that allow us to sort of make decisions on how to manage these materials and what that would actually look like.
Hey, Brian, Mike Conway here. What is the depth at which this mineralization is occurring?
The cool thing is that it can happen at the surface. So this project is focused on ex situ mineralization, so right at the surface. So that would mean, if you took a cone and you ground it down to a powder and you mixed it, I think the average estimates is roughly 20 million metric tons per cone. Obviously, you're going to destroy something and then create something else like a tailings pile. So that's not what, it is what it is. We're just doing some math. But at the subsurface level, that does give us a different view. And that's what the Harquahala project is for, is to test the subsurface in situ component.
Okay, thank you.
And so that's this project. This is our CO2 HQ in Harquahala. It's a Carbon Safe 2 project that we were awarded back in October. And we did a phase 1 study with all of the legacy seismic lines, and we were able to demonstrate and warrant a phase 2 approach to drill a characterization well. So we set out to drill a 7,000-foot strat well and built a casing design to seal off the salt. There's roughly 2,500 feet of bedded salt in this basin that we think exists, but it has never been penetrated. We see it in almost all the seismic lines, and it's indicated by the chlorine content is really high near the top of it. So we just need to drill that. So we were able to get roughly 12.3 million from the federal government and 8 cost-sharing partners on this project, and that would buy 1 strat test well and 8 lines, or about 110 miles of 2D seismic. And that's to delineate the extent of the bedded salt, which we think is this teal version right here. So we do need to validate this and test it. We wanted to go to 10,000 feet just to go into basement and to get a bottom hole temperature, just to evaluate the geothermal component. But this kind of project is, we think it's sellable because, we're characterizing a wildcat basin essentially, and it's not just CCS, it's CCUS with basaltic rocks at the bottom, which we're almost certain exist. So we've got mineralization, we have saline injection, we have geothermal potential, and then we also have brine disposal and pore space potential. And so that's consistent with what I think the objectives of the UIC program are. And then we have more than one CCS storage point here. We have at least 3. So we just need to validate that. So we think this is a reasonable ask. DOE did cancel 36 billion in carbon related projects, but ours was not one of them. That doesn't mean that we have confirmation, so we're still waiting to hear. So hopefully this does not get canceled.
Brian, Chairman Thorwald again. Aren't your partners in this the state utilities?
Yes, SRP, APS, and TEP are 3 of the partners.
Thank you.
And lastly, I think on mitigation and regulation, we know that we have the UIC pending, and and that includes Class 6 for something like CCS. And I think that the reason for putting this slide up is that this is a typical monitoring, reporting, and verification tactic, and that you can monitor these plumes. We've been doing it for quite a while, and we think that it's really just a matter of just going through the steps to characterize leakage pathways, sealability and volumes and modeling. And so that's the take-home message of this slide, is that it's designed to protect the USDW or drinking water aquifers, and that risks are manageable. Pore space liability and regulation aren't well defined, but that's being addressed, and that there's collaboration with AZOGCC to help do that. Yes,
Brian, you and I have talked about this in the past, but the pore space liability, the Interstate Oil and Gas Compact, as you know from material you've seen and the commission has seen, is addressing that, and we'll have all the states in agreement on that package, the draft package you've seen, finished in September. But is there anything that you don't agree with that, or you think that's problematic? Obviously, and what does the state of Arizona still need to do to be able to allow this to happen from not only your perspective, but the AZOGCC?
well, as a geologist, I'm not really, I think I feel like I'm still a newbie in this space. I think on the science side of things, I've read through those, and I feel like that all of those best practices are addressed, and they're very appropriate. I think it's pretty straightforward. From a regulatory standpoint, I think that the unitization is something that we've seen many times brought up by industry, and that without unitization that's addressed, then they just walk away. So we've seen at least 3 major industry partners be interested, and willing to contribute cash towards projects. But then when asked about the pore space, not having any regulation to address that, they said no, they backed out of these projects. So I'm not sure if that answers your question or not.
You feel they'll come back once we have that, if we have that resolved?
Yeah, I think, I'm not going to say who, but we've had one company say, yes, once you get that resolved, please let us know.
Thank you. I have one other quick question for you while we're here. And part of this is going to go with Mike Hightower when he presents as well. But one of the things that we have talked about in the state in the past has been issues associated with water and growing crops and so forth. And talking about being able to use greenhouses and water from the geothermal loop systems that are through the holes already existed and CO2 to be able to flood the greenhouses, which of course dramatically increases, doubles and triples the growth of the plants, and being able to use some of that produced water for those crops. How do you see that? Are we going to be able to pull any of that out? I know some of the discussion has been with regard to that existing field in Arizona, but how do you see that happening in the state?
You mean the management of produced water?
Well, no, I meant the use of CO2 within the greenhouse spaces, as we've talked, within that, the combination of those things. Is this going to limit the ability to use CO2 for that, if that would ever occur? Or where do we stand with that?
I think in terms of the economics of the CO2, there's so much that needs to be, that you have access to, right? I can't remember what our numbers are for the state. I think we're around 23 million cubic meters or not cubic meters, sorry, 23 million metric tons of CO2 or something like that per year. So there's more than enough to go around, and that does not include the intention and plans to develop direct air capture with or without federal support. Those initiatives are still moving forward. So I like your question because, at least from my perspective, we're talking about orders of magnitude of use and management of CO2. Like this space for CCS, for stacked saline injection, you were trying to look for space on the order of 200 to 1,000 million metric tons. And there's plenty of pore space for that. I mean, it's a joke how much there is accessible to at depths of around 8 to 10,000 feet with 100,000 ppm type settings. But at the surface for management of CO2, like greenhouses, I think it's great. I don't know what volume that is, but I think it's quite small in comparison. Does that answer your question?
It does. Want to follow on the existing CO2 field. Is that going to be affected? Would that still be available to use for those areas, or is there different types of CO2 that's going to affect that potential?
For the CO2 field, you mean like St. John's CO2? Or
I do mean the St. John's field. I mentioned that only because, being one of the poorest counties in the nation, if that could be developed, that was the question.
Well, that's, yeah, if you're trying to put CO2 in there and then take it out for use, I don't quite understand that, but the quality of the CO2 is really high. I think it's like 98 or 99% pure CO2 for the St. John's. That might make a difference when you're talking about uses of it in other applications. I'm not really sure about. I think that for injection for the class 6, that a relatively high quality is required, like 98%. So I'm not, and that's why the St. John's site was developed to export that CO2 because of its quality to the Permian Basin for flooding.
Right. The last question I have on that is related to the Navajo Nation and the oil fields there. Is any of the CO2 being used to flood their oil fields up there, or do you know?
I've heard that is a negative, that CO2 has not been used for EOR in those basins up in the corner of the state.
Thank you. Go ahead and proceed.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong on that. That's I think I asked that question once a long time ago, and the answer was no. But
I don't think they're being used either up there. So
okay. It does raise questions about enhanced oil recovery or residual oil zones, ROZs, and use of application in Arizona. I think there's some potential for that discussion separately. This is just a sort of a graphic that is a reflection of our thinking of distributed energy related waste like brine and gas storage in the basin and range. And so we have a typical bedrock bound half graben with bedded salt or not, but this is based on Luke. Luke looks really similar to this, and Harquahala as well. And so we have this sort of mafic, ultramafic rocks here in the bottom of these basins. That's really common. We also have a really complex ultramafic granite based complex below that's not part of this characterization. And so each of these injection control classes, class 5 for geothermal, 6 for CCS, for heat pumps over here, and aquifer storage and recovery wells. this is kind of what we're thinking what the UIC program would fit into in a typical basin and range setting. Not all of them, but some of them. And likewise, this a similar one for the Colorado Plateau. The lithology is relatively similar. You have bedded salts, you have siliciclastics, carbonates, and a complex basement. Not included in this are volcanic fields and diabase or other rock types that I think aren't really represented here. But even though the geologic setting is quite unique in the basin and range. So this is another attempt to kind of put a diagrammatic approach on how pore space is managed, especially with the assumption that pore space competition is going to increase and unitization is going to increase. So this is just a first stab at trying to kind of get a handle on how we currently use this or how we envision pore space being used. And I'll just add here that the St. John's Dome is, kind of tickling that idea. You have a dome here, and this is where the CO2 would be injected. No, sorry, not where the CO2. This is where the helium is accumulating, but it's also accumulating in other zones in here. But the target for St. John's is unconventional. It is in the basement rock, and there's more porosity down here than there is in the stack above it. So this is the target for St. John's. And that Class 6 application is expected by the end of next year, and that will be submitted by Proton Green. And then a couple last slides. I just bring this up. This is one of our ArcPro projects where we have a lot of databases that handle cross sections, structure, fields, different types of gas fields. All that kind of stuff is in our data sets, and most people don't have access to this. So one of the things that we've been working towards is to take this and turn it into a web map. And so this is currently our web map. It's not accessible because we just haven't publicly released it yet. But we do plan to fold into here a lot of these data sets that are highlighting, well data. So we have a link to the OGCC's sites, ADWR wells, and other wells where we have tops and bottoms, formation tops and bottoms for water wells and oil and gas. Will be in this field. Then we have some data sets for hydrogeology, groundwater, surface geology, like state maps, that kind of thing. And then a bunch of subsurface data, including cross sections that have been developed over the years. And then a CCS domain. There's many other layers down here. We have 75 in all. So we hope that this is something that that would benefit the state in terms of we call it a decision-making tool. And it will be downloadable as well. And most of the data sets will be downloadable. And then lastly, these are just some of the projects that we're focused on now, and we think that we will move, this sort of configuration will move a little bit in the next administration or two, but we have multiple CO2 or CCS projects that are mostly focused on the Four Corners. And then we have our ex situ mafic project. It might just kind of dead end where it is, but it's a really amazing project with lots of really good data. We see potential with ARPA on developing new space for this technology. We are part of the Regional Direct Air Capture Hub led by ASU, and that will yield the Class 6 application for St. John's is underneath this project. And we have two fairly ambitious data collection-oriented proposals that we submitted to the Geothermal Technology Office, about $5 million each, and this will buy a lot of legacy seismic and aeromag and other data sets to be acquired under these two umbrellas, but we have not heard from them yet. And then, like I said, we'd like to stay active in the research associated with bedded salts, but of course, kind of hard to come by. So we'll see if this sticks or not. So with that, thank you. I just want to end on this nice shot of Red Lake in northern Arizona, and I'm happy to entertain questions.
Brian, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Brian?
Thank you, Brian. It's very informative. You covered so much. I won't make you cover any more right now.
This is Commissioner Nations.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Hey, Brian. Do any of these methods that for sequestration include the acidization of the rock or to enhancing of pore space rather than just accepting as it exists?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, we thought that, well, it depends on what your objective is. If it were for utilization to increase porosity, that's an option for carbonate-based rocks because it's an acid, so it's going to create some pore space in calc silicates or limestones, those kinds of rocks. But I'm not familiar with any studies that have actually explored increasing permeability porosity through this type of injection. There have been projects that are focused on dissolving rocks like those, really to get access to heavy metals for extraction. And so there's been that sort of approach in Washington, but I'm not sure of anywhere else, maybe Oregon. Those are the two states that have tried that sort of injection/extraction technique. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just thinking about so much of this basin fill is it's classic materials, but very frequently, in my experience, the permeability is very low, just because of cementation of the grains. So I was just thinking if they could be, enhance that in that permeability and porosity in a given rock unit, it might increase the chances of it being acceptable for CO2 sequestration.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, fracking is something that's also been brought up, to increase that kind of connectivity. I don't think it doesn't make sense to do that for these kinds of volumes. It's just too cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
But you can certainly, I like the St. John's options for a couple of reasons. It illustrates the idea that porosity actually exists in the basement if those fractures are not healed. So finding the right favorable structural setting is, I think, really key. And those do exist depending on how you think of what's happening in the last 10 million years. Where's the most of the activity and the strain accommodating? Those are the kinds of zones are perfect for geothermal. And in this context, you could inject CO2 into a basement reservoir and create a reservoir of hot dry rock using CO2, and you'll yield a much better return on compressibility and expansion using CO2 as a medium for that. And it's only been done a couple places in the world, but it should work really well in our setting. So we've been on a couple proposals to propose injecting CO2 into these settings, but not so much for storage, but really just as a geothermal looping medium.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Brian, commissioners? Hearing none, thank you, Brian. We appreciate it. We look forward to having you again. Let us move on to the next item on the agenda. The presentation on produced water by Mike Hightower. Mike, I know you're last, but you're certainly not least in my mind. This is an important subject for Arizona. we have about 30 wells that could be opened here in Arizona if we could figure out a way to deal with the produced water. And unfortunately, the way that the statutes read here in Arizona, all water needs to be clean and drinkable, and you know,
Oh, Frank, you cut out. I'm not hearing you. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Can
I
you
can
hear me
hear
now?
you,
Yes.
but not Frank.
Yeah, we lost Frank.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Given that we have issues with water here in the state, and that all of our water, for the majority of it, is salty, about the same as the sea for our produced water, we could open 30 wells overnight practically if we could deal with the produced water, because we can't re-inject that produced water back into the ground without getting aquifer protection permits, because of having to have pure water in there. And it gets very costly for companies to be able to do that. So we're looking at the agricultural uses, the greenhouse, and other things. So we're really looking forward to your presentation on how we could deal with this, which could really expand business opportunities in the state and business growth.
Okay, let's see. I guess you're gonna have to advance my slides, which is fine.
Yep, just let me know. Thank you.
I'm ready to roll.
All right.
Since we're talking about that, Frank, let's go back to my first slide. That's in the Permian Basin. We're putting in tremendously large evaporation ponds and holding ponds for our produced water. I'm not saying that that's where we're going to go, but I'll mention at the end that there are some things that we're finding we can recover probably for the produced water that you have in Arizona. 85–90% of that water can be treated and reused. You always will have some concentrate, but I'll talk about that. But we can get that concentrate down to very small ponds that we can handle. So, and we're looking a lot at least in the West, the uses for agriculture. And I think that's for smaller areas where you have fewer wells and you can't really gather the water. Agriculture makes a lot of sense in a lot of areas in New Mexico, and I think they will in Arizona also. So I'll just go ahead and get started. And I don't have to tell you guys about the water supply issues in the United States. This came out of some work that I did with the national laboratories. When I worked at Sandia, I led a group on the energy water nexus back in 2003, was when we started. And a lot of these figures come from that work that we did looking at where are the issues on surface water in the United States and groundwater in the US. And as you guys know, the Western states, New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, are states that really are water challenged. But I use this nationally because I like to show that other states that you think have a lot of water, Illinois, Minnesota, Washington State, the eastern half of the U.S., there's a lot of water issues there too. So I think what I'm going to talk about here in just a minute or two is that the EPA has decided that looking at non-traditional water resources is going to be the next big availability of new water supplies for the U.S. And so the next slide, if we could go to that, just gives you some examples of work that has been published. The first report on the energy water nexus, where the need for water for energy supplies and for water supplies, the need for energy, and therefore energy areas need to be looked at closely, are in these documents. You can use this to go in and look at some of the background information on what are the drivers get identified. There's also 5 GAO reports, studies that were done in the mid 2010s that focused on things like produced water and reuse of produced water. So I just want to leave these for you that you can go and look at these and get background information if you want, or you can call me and I can get you access to these documents. So the next slide. And so everyone talks about, well, why is everyone talking about produced water? And what the GAO did in one of their studies was look at states that were water stressed and polled their water managers from across the U.S. for each of the states. And so on the left-hand side, you see all the states in blue are not blue states. They're states that are short of water or have been identified as having regional water stress. Some states you can see there, like Arizona, says that they have some local water stress. Other states like New Mexico are saying, no, we have regional water stresses. I think really New Mexico and Arizona are probably in the same boat. But look at the number of states across the nation that are saying we currently have water stress, and by 2024, which was the projection from this report 10 years ago, what kind of stress they would look at. And if you look at the basins where produced water is being developed, oil and gas is being developed, they map pretty closely with the states that are seeing water stress. So the fact that many states around the country are seeing water stress, about 30 states have oil and gas operations, 35. The EPA looked at produced water as one of those non-traditional water resources that they thought could be utilized kind of nationally. So the next slide just talks about the EPA's Water Reuse Action Plan, which came out in 2020. It is a national water reuse action plan, and it really focuses on the fit-for-purpose treatment and reuse of wastewater. One of the 5 major wastewaters that they selected was produced water. And the reason for that was the previous slide that I showed, is that there are a number of states with access to produced water that have water stress. So because our consortium was stood up back in 2019 with the intent of treating produced water for reuse outside of oil and gas, they asked us to work with the Groundwater Protection Council to put together strategies and do research looking at the treatment and reuse of produced water. So this is all background information. What I'm going to go talk about right now is some of the research we've been doing for the last 5 years, what the status is, and what you guys can utilize from us. If you'd like to work with us, you have some great groundwater and water resource schools at Arizona State and U of A. We do a lot of our research is through New Mexico State, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, University of Colorado. So we could use those. If you'd like to be involved in working with us on this, I'd invite you to do that. But what the next slide that you see right here is just examples of the size of the testing that we're doing. A lot of people think about doing testing at the bench scale or the laboratory scale. Over the last 4 or 5 years, we've moved into much larger scale systems. Some of these systems are doing up to 500 to 1,000 barrels of produced water a day at 42 gallons a barrel. So we're looking at anywhere from 10 to 20,000 gallons a day systems. So these are large scale systems that are at the scale that you could put out in the field. And most of these are field scale, as you can see. And they're about the size of moving toward the size of a commercial facility that's treating produced water at about 500,000 gallons of water a day in Pennsylvania. So, In some cases, we're looking at pretty high salinity produced water, which is 100,000 TDS in the Permian. We need thermal systems in the San Juan Basin. We're using RO systems there in New Mexico. Your water in northeastern Colorado, Arizona is very similar to the San Juan Basin water. So I think we can use RO systems, which are quite mature. A lot of the thermal systems are mature that we're using, but they're a little more expensive. So the next slide that I wanted to have you look at is a couple of things that we're seeing in directions across the U.S. in these major oil and gas basins. And that is, one, there's a move toward mineral recovery of the brine. And I have an example of a brine that we tested out of the Permian Basin. It started out at 100,000, 120,000 TDS. And you can see that our distillate, our treated water, is on the order of 500 parts per million TDS water. That's definitely at a quality available, usable for agriculture. And I'll show some slides here in a second about that. We do have some ammonia in some of the waters, which is good from an agricultural perspective. It acts as a fertilizer. It needs to be somewhere between 10 and 20. Sometimes we get it a little above that, so we have to remove the ammonia. But if you're looking at mineral recovery, there's a lot of minerals in some of these produced waters. And I show some, if you see water above 500 parts per million in strontium or potassium or lithium, those are all good. And so what we're seeing is we're starting out for potassium in the Permian at 600. We're getting almost all of it to go into the concentrates. The concentrates around 1,200 to 1,300 parts per million, which means that it's such that the cost of removing that could make it potentially feasible from a mineral recovery. So everybody talks about lithium, and I show lithium down here. Lithium's not necessarily great in the Permian, but there are other minerals that a lot of people are looking at. I know that North Dakota is really focused on mineral recovery, as an example. I wanted to mention the costs because I'll get into that in a minute. But for waters like you see in Arizona and northwestern New Mexico, we're looking at being able to treat those for 25 to 30 cents a barrel, whereas disposal and transportation can be as much as $3 to $5 a barrel. It's actually less expensive to treat the water and use it locally than it is to try and move it and dispose of it. So there's a lot of opportunities, I think, in northeastern Arizona because of your water quality and the types of produced water that you're getting, to be able to use it for a number of applications. And I just wanted to mention one of the things that we're seeing is in the bottom pictures, the far right one is the quality of the water we're getting out of the San Juan Basin right now. And you can tell that it doesn't have it's mostly a gas basin. We're getting a lot of water, a little bit of gas. So it's not the black produced water that you generally would think of. So it's a lot easier to treat. That's actually good from a desalination perspective. And then the two pictures on the left are waters out of the Permian that are actually, we're not desalinating those. We're just treating them to a clean brine, which those waters have the oil removed and they're still high TDS, but what it makes it much easier for the desalination systems to work. So some of the pre-treatment technologies that we've evaluated really make the treatment of this produced water much easier, much more cost effective. So the next slide.
Could I interrupt with a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Just point out the lithium value that you've got there, 32 ppm. I think that's getting pretty close to the bottom end of what's kind of considered commercial just for the lithium in, Clayton Valley, Argentina, Chile, that. So you're getting real close to just being able to do it for the lithium alone. And strontium, of course, has market value. And I've often wondered, there are other elements I want to take a look at sometime that see if you could actually look at recovering them from fluids and, instead of mining them as solid rock. So you're getting real close right there.
Yeah. So
thank you, Commissioner Fire Robin. I'll send you a list of what we have that's coming out of the produced water. It was done a few years back by
Appreciate that. Thank you.
So there is a study going on by the Groundwater Protection Council, done by a person by the name of Kyle Murray, who was with the Oklahoma Geologic Survey. He's now retired. He's working in Colorado. He has a report coming out that has looked at about 60 or 70 minerals and has a cost comparison between what you can get and what you can recover them at. And in most produced waters will have anywhere from 5 to 10 minerals that potentially are cost effective to recover. I had lithium here. Generally, the number that we get from the lithium producers, they like to see stuff above 100. Some of them say I can go down to 75. So you're right, in the Permian at 32. If we really concentrate that up and double it, it's closer to the 75. And as technologies change, I think you're going to see you'll be able to recover some of these minerals at even lower values and still make it cost effective. So those are good points. And people are looking at that, and it does offset some of your costs of disposal, treatment, etc. So let's go to the next slide. Almost done. I wanted to mention, here is a document on quality for irrigation done by the Bureau Rec in the mid 2010 timeframe. And just to highlight that, looking at state irrigation discharge criteria, many of the Western states have the same discharge requirements. It's not that difficult to get to a irrigation quality water. And we're also seeing in the state of New Mexico, when we did our statewide survey about reusing produced water, what we found is counties that had water stress and aridity issues, drought issues consistently, always ranked really, really high in looking at the reuse of produced water. And what we're seeing is as many as 85% of the people saying, yeah, if you can treat the produced water safely, we'll reuse it. Only 5% are saying no. Most of those people live in Santa Fe. So, you don't have a Santa Fe, but I don't know whether your state capital is like ours, but people in Santa Fe don't want to do anything, nothing. So anyway, we're always going to have the 5% saying no, but looking at this is a 2-year statewide survey that we did. I think there's a lot of understanding within the Western states that these non-traditional water resources have value. So let's just go to the next slide. Frank talked about irrigation. Here are a couple of large-scale irrigation projects that we're working on that we've done. Some for alfalfa, some for Sudan grass. And just the point is, if you look at these stands of agricultural products that are either, in both cases, they're using municipal drinking water and then a treated produced water, you can't see the difference. I mean, we're seeing that the quality of the treated produced water is very, very high. So for irrigation in the steps that we have been doing at large scale. So next slide. We've also done some stuff in the greenhouses. at New Mexico State. This was some studies done with water from the San Juan Basin, looking at range grasses. There's a lot of interest in looking at range grasses as well as greenhouse plants. We've done those. We have some operational greenhouses in the checkerboard area of northwestern New Mexico. So if you're interested, we can show you some of the activities that we have in those greenhouses that are commercially operating today. Right now, they're focused on pine seedlings, but we've also done the work on native grasses, and all of our treated produced water does really well on native grasses and general crops that we have in the Southwest, grasses, hays, things like that. So we're also seeing a big movement in New Mexico on the rangeland because it's easier to handle from an irrigation perspective. You can use the water year round. So agriculture, range grasses, rangeland, rehabilitation, restoration are things that look very, very promising to us. Next slide.
Mike, Chairman Burwell, before you go forward, a quick question for you. Have you done any of this with respect to hydroponics, since you can grow so much more with so much less water? Have you done any testing in that area?
Nobody that we have used has done hydroponics yet, Frank. I think at some point in time, some companies are going to be talking about that, but we haven't done any hydroponics. No.
Thank you.
So next slide. I'm almost done here. I did want to. I don't know where my figure went on the far left-hand side, but I did want to mention, if the state of Arizona is interested in moving forward with regulations on the use of produced water, the EPA is currently revising 40 CFR 435 and 437, which are the regulations around the use of produced water outside oil and gas. And you're going to see some regulations coming out in probably the end of this year that are going to allow you to move forward with treated produced water, meeting some new regulatory requirements, but very much in line with what we're doing in the state of New Mexico, state of Texas, and for applications that you can see. They're including rangeland irrigation and agricultural applications, as well as ecological needs. And I think what I had on the ecological needs is, what didn't show up is a picture from the Western U.S. BLM has come to us and talked to us about, with all of the oil and gas operations along the mountains in the West, their effort to try and utilize produced water to do rangeland restoration from Montana all the way down through Arizona and New Mexico and into Texas. So BLM is talking to us about the federal role for them in using produced water across all the Western states. So next slide. And here's some concluding remarks that I thought you might want to kind of keep in mind, is that the EPA's Water Reuse Action Plan is moving forward. We now have about 12 states that are involved in our coordinating council on produced water. A couple of other states have expressed interest. Those two states are Ohio and Illinois. They have oil and gas activities, but they're now interested in looking at the use of produced water. And the reason that produced water is getting a lot of interest is it's an industrial wastewater resource. It's kind of across many, many states, but things like data centers and things like that are getting a lot of attention, and they need huge amounts of water. They need it at the surface, and they need some way that you can handle the brine, the concentrate that comes off of that when they use it in cooling towers. And so we've been working on the solutions for these highly concentrated brines. We can take that brine, we can use the treated produced water. It becomes a brine once you do the cycles of concentration in the cooling towers, and we can retreat that and reuse that. So there's part of the reason that the data centers, they use so much water, they can get some of the produced water free or close to being free. They now have the oil companies that can handle the brines, so it's kind of a turnkey operation. The things that I wanted to highlight here is that the cost of treating the produced water is now between 50 cents to $1.50 a barrel, and most disposal is running $1 to $5. So you can see that we're kind of crossed that threshold where treatment of the produced water is actually cheaper in many cases than disposal, especially if you have to truck it away. So what we're seeing, and maybe is something that the state of Arizona could look at, is especially with the water quality that you have that's produced water, treating as much of that produced water as you can, probably getting 80% recovery for fresh water. You'll have 20% brine. We can utilize, there's a lot of new enhanced evaporation systems that can allow you to evaporate that brine and then keep the solid materials and minerals so that you have a lot less disposal, and you can recycle the brines. So also what we're seeing is industries looking at both portable systems and then larger systems. And I think in Arizona, the portable systems, which are becoming very common, probably more appropriate for your applications. They tie in closely with local agriculture or local rangeland restoration. They don't have as big of a footprint. They don't have as big of a brine handling problem. So I think that there's a lot of work that we're doing over the last 5 years to show that there's some real opportunities for produced water treatment and reuse within Arizona. And you can use the data that we're collecting to help you move forward. So that's kind of the summary. Frank, you said 15 minutes. I kind of went over that quickly. I've got a lot more information, but I think at the high level, this gives everyone an understanding of where we are in the country with produced water treatment and reuse, what our consortium's been able to show, what we think the costs are going to be, and how people are starting to use that, and the data that we have that we can provide to you to help you move forward with Arizona DEQ and others if you want to move forward. Okay?
Mike, Mike, this is Commissioner Nations.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
Before you close, how much of this waste produced water comes from coal bed methane projects in New Mexico or Wyoming and places like that? That could be a significant increase in the amount of produced water.
Well, right now, there's not as much coal bed methane as there is in traditional oil and gas, or I should say unconventional oil and gas. A lot of people are going to the fracking and on unconventional oil and gas. So a lot of the work is on oil production, not coal bed methane. But we're still seeing in New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, there's still coal bed methane that is being generated. And the good part about that is that water generally is much easier to treat and easier to use.
Well, that's one point I wanted to make. On the Navajo and Hopi reservations, of course, there's a lot of coal that's not accessible for mining. But I think they could produce it, utilize it to produce methane. And of course, that yields a lot of water.
Right.
And therefore, the water from coal bed methane might be a more desirable aspect for some areas like that.
Sure. Yeah, it could be, and it's relatively easy to treat. It's which is good.
Mike, this is Chairman Thorwald. A couple quick thoughts, questions. One, why is the industry using so much water and not using the geothermal ground loop or open loop systems to utilize the water instead of putting it into a cooling tower? When you use those, you don't even need cooling towers to cool the data centers.
So you want my opinion? I don't have the perfect answer, but I think these data centers are trying to get by with the cheapest amount of water that they can. They just want somebody else to provide it. And so they're going to municipalities trying to get their municipal wastewater. It's because it's quicker. If they go to a geothermal, they've got to get a permitting for the geothermal, drill the wells and stuff like that. I personally believe it's just that they're in this mode of, I want to get my data center out there as quickly as I can. That's one of the reasons I think they're looking at produced water. Is it's on the surface, it's there. They can get it pretty inexpensively. I just don't think they're planning long term, Frank. I think that they're just, let's get them in there as quickly as we can. We've got to beat everybody else to the data center issue. That's my opinion.
Appreciate that. The other comment I had side was, you mentioned the EPA 43.5 and 43.6. I don't think that'll have much impact on us here in Arizona, since we have our own statutes that are causing us problems that are different than everybody else in the nation with regard to reuse of that.
You may be right. I'm just, for a lot of states that don't have any real regulations yet, I think that the 435 and 437 are going to open up a lot of use of non-traditional waters for states. Not sure that Arizona will be able to use them, but there's a lot of other states that will. And it kind of, in my opinion, it kind of gives the basement for where the regulations are going to be, because I think we're going to see some really nice regulations out of the EPA on produced water that might influence some other states to move forward. Okay.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for our guest? I'm not sure if we can do this, but we have Senator Frank Carroll on the line too. Senator Carroll, do you have any questions for our speakers?
Actually, I don't, other than, some of the stuff you shared, I'd like to get my hands on. And I do see a big list that I've made here of things that I'm going to have to do some digging in to kind of get caught up in my capacity with Natural Resources Committee. And yeah, this is going to be work we need to do, definitely.
All righty, Frank. I need to go. But
thank you, Mike.
As you know, you're sitting on our coordinating council, and we appreciate all the work that you do. So anything that you need from me, follow up, come to any meetings in Arizona, whatever I can do to help out, we'll make sure.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Appreciate that, sir.
Thank you.
One other quick note. We have another company that has been in northern Arizona above Holbrook area. There's at least lots of land. They have been holding back and potentially could open a lot of wells. They've talked about over 100 but they have not done this. That they've said basically because of the produced water situation. So I don't know whether that stands there. Still is what they are thinking or not. But just to let you know that there's a lot of potential out there. Moving on to the call to the public. Is there anybody in the public that would like to address the commission? Hearing no one, let us move on to agenda item 6, request for future agenda items. Commissioners, is there anything you would like to have put on the agenda for our future meetings? Hearing none, let's move on to announcement. Go ahead. Did I? No. Moving on to the next item then, is there any announcements that we need to make? Hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item 8, adjournment. It is now 12 noon, July 18th, and this meeting of the Arizona Oil and Gas Conservation Commission is concluded. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Frank. Dale.
Thank you, guys.